Oh, you're shooting? Oh, shoot. Really? Okay. What am I going to say? You should be able to. Hey, everybody, it's Chris, and welcome to Yin Yoga for Healthy Hips. This class is really a foundationally important class. We focus on that area between your thighs and your torso, your lower core, an area where we really gain a lot of benefits from Yin. Yin classes, we hold the poses for 1 to 2 minutes or even longer per pose, sometimes up to 5 minutes. If you haven't done this type of practice before, make sure you check in with your doctor to make sure that it's all right for you. And we filmed the class with myself and my wife so that you can see different body types and you can get an idea for how to modify the poses a little bit and how you might look different in the pose depending on your body. So I hope you enjoy the class. Feel free to do it a couple of times a week, a couple of times every week, and you'll really see the benefits from it. I really hope you enjoy. And here we go. Also, I forgot to say, you should check in with chrisbrownstudios.com and see all the great things we have going on there. There you have it. Have a wonderful class. All right, welcome everyone. I'm Chris, and this is Yin Yoga. So, a couple of new faces. If you haven't done Yin before, we tend to hold the poses for generally 2 to 5 minutes per pose, so that may be new to you. Or if you're new to yoga, just feel free to look around, see what's going on, and just try to follow along. So the poses are not too challenging in terms of getting into them, but you probably will find some challenges during the class. So that's kind of what it's all about, just listening to your body, seeing what you're feeling, being okay with the challenges, and we'll see what we get into. So let's go ahead and get started. Come on into child's pose. On your hands and knees like a child about to crawl somewhere. Relax your hips back down to your heels and just sink on in. And see if you can begin to make this internal shift by beginning to listen to your breaths. In Yin, we don't control the breaths, we just kind of let the breaths happen on their own. But at least for me, that drawing the attention down to the breath, I usually pay attention to that spot just where it's entering my nostrils. Now that's an opportunity there, or a simple way to begin to leave the outside world behind and begin to develop an internal attention or awareness. And I think sometimes that's the hardest shift to make, is that when we're going from our rushed days or whatever you were doing before you got here, a lot of times what we're trying to do is outwardly focused, right? Getting stuff done or accomplishing things. And then now we have this opportunity to just totally focus on ourselves. So we do that firstly by focusing on the breathing, and then we try to expand it to our entire body. So you can feel the subtle sensations of the movement of your chest and your torso with your breaths. You can maybe feel the points of your body that are sinking into the floor. And if you really let your muscles go here, you might even notice that you find a bit of a stretching and a sinking in. Yin Yoga is about creating space both in our bodies and our minds through allowing things to slow down. Definitely counterintuitive in this go-go culture, that you can actually get somewhere by sitting still. So if you're new to it, try to reserve judgment. If you've been doing it for a while, you know that judgment can be one of your biggest challenges in this class. Getting out of your ego, letting go of expectations. But that letting go of the ego, right, that's the first step towards cultivating our wisdom. And that's what I'd like for you to have as an intention for this entire class. Can I stay out of my ego? Can I side with my wisdom? And I'll give you some cues for how to do that as we go through the class. So from here, let's come onto our hands and knees like a child about to crawl somewhere. We'll place our hands about shoulders width apart, feet about hips width apart. Tuck our toes, lift our hips for downward facing dog. So hips go a little high, heels sink a little low, head relaxes down. And since this is sort of an energetic pose, we won't hold this one for too long. But what I'd like for you to do here is get a little bit creative in terms of some movements here. So imagine that point when you wake up in the morning and you just kind of move around, you're stretching, you don't really think about it. You can bicycle your heels, you can let your hips go from side to side, you can lift one leg to the sky and then the other. You can go into a totally different pose. You do that by getting out of your head and just listening to your body. Your body is going to tell you the right thing to do here. And then when you're ready, we're going to come into a runner's lunge with the right foot. So right foot comes up between the hands, you drop your back knee down, you release your back toes. So that back knee is down, there you go. And then we're going to just twist gently to the right side. So you might want to bring your forearm down to the ground with the left hand. You put your right hand wherever feels right, so maybe that right hand goes on to that right knee. Maybe you grab a hold of that right knee with the right hand. Right, we're just going to relax into this pose for a little bit. So if you find your front heel is coming up a little bit, you can slide that back knee back a little so that front foot's flat on the floor. Your head can go wherever you want. You can look up, you can look down, whatever feels comfortable. And since we hold the poses for a bit of time, feel free to make those little adjustments so that you can stay comfortable in the pose. And we're trying to find a spot that's not too challenging, a spot that just kind of feels right. It's like you go to that first spot of resistance, and then you just kind of stop there. And then after some time in the pose, you might find that you can naturally sink in a little bit further. Or you might find that you need to back off a little bit. And that's where that wisdom comes in, right? The ego's usually telling us, go farther, try to get further into it. Our wisdom is saying, hey, maybe it's a little bit smarter to back off a little bit and be okay with not going so far. From here, we'll put both hands down onto the ground. We'll work our way back into downward facing dog. So you probably come onto all fours and up to down dog. We shake things out a little bit. And then we'll take on that other side. So that left foot comes forward into the runner's lunge. The back knee releases down, release the back toes. And then we're going to gently twist to the left side. So you can come down onto your forearm. We're coming up onto this foot. With the other foot forward. So switch. This foot goes back, this foot comes forward. There you go. And then we'll slide the back knee back a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then we're just going to twist over to this side a little. And you can come down on this forearm if you want, or if that's too much, you don't have to. And then see if you can take this hand and put it on this knee. There you go. So see if you can listen to your body, right? I don't know how it's supposed to feel. I mean, I know how it feels for me personally, so that's the tips that I give you is generally do what feels right for me in this pose. But for each of us, it's going to feel a little bit different based on our body types, based on any injuries that you may have. So just be okay with how it feels, right? It's not going to feel the same. If you started doing this stuff as a teenager and you're 60 years old now, it's not going to feel the same. You're not going to go to the same spot. Or if you're new to yoga, you don't even know how it's supposed to feel. So you just listen to your body. If something hurts, you back out of it a little bit. You just find that spot. From here, we'll bring both hands down, come onto all fours, and then work our way into downward facing dog. We'll step the right foot forward into a runner's lunge again. You can use a hand to help it up there if you need to. We're going to drop the back knee down. Release the back toes. And then this time what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to let that front knee project out over that front foot a little bit. All right, so lean into it a little. You can let your hips go down towards your front ankle. And then you do whatever feels comfortable with your hands, which can be on the floor, which can be on blocks. Some of you might even want to explore bringing your hands up onto that front knee. That can feel pretty nice too, but not for everybody. And if you're coming up a little bit on that front heel coming up a little bit, that's fine too. And here we're doing a lot of stuff resting on that back knee, so a good option I always forget to recommend is to grab 2 yoga mats. Or you can fold that mat over to make a little extra cushion under your back knee, or a towel, whatever you have available. So find that spot of resistance as your groin moves towards your front ankle or sinks in a little bit. And then you just try to breathe into that spot. So you can take those breaths and direct them down towards that area where you're feeling something. And then see if you can allow that stuff to release there. Particularly in this pose, if you allow things to release a little bit, your body weight kind of helps you to sink a little bit further, which can either feel nice or at a certain point it can become too much. So if it becomes too much, you just push into your hands a little bit, move your hips back just maybe a half an inch or so, and you'll probably find a huge relief just in that. And then push out with your hands, slowly come out of the pose. Work your way onto all fours, and then into down dog. Any little movements in down dog, kind of shake things out a little bit. And then take on the other side when you're ready. That runner's lunge first. Back knee drops down. Release the back toes. You can bring that foot up a little bit further if you need to, but eventually we're trying to get that spot where the knee goes over the front foot a little bit. You try it with the hands down. You try it maybe with the hands on that front knee. Not forgetting about those breaths, keeping a little bit of attention on those breaths as they spill in and out of my body naturally. And then expanding that focus to what I'm feeling. And then maybe even expanding that focus to my thoughts about what I'm going through. And then those thoughts that pop into my head, I can't stop them. It's too late. Once they happen, they happen. But maybe I can keep from becoming attached to those thoughts. In Buddhism, that's called firing the second arrow. When you have the thought, and then you have the thought about the thought. And that's the beginning of that dangerous spiral of thinking the same thoughts over and over again and getting judgmental and wishing I skipped yoga because this class kind of stinks, or whatever it is that pops into your head. We're seeing if we can not have that second thought. Working on being a little bit non-judgmental. Slowly begin to work yourself out. Work your way into down dog. Hips go a little high, heels sink a little low. Any little movements that feel right to shake out that last pose. Then from here we're going to take our right leg, we're going to work our way into pigeon. So take your right knee, bring it behind your right wrist. And then let your foot fall down to a comfortable spot. So this one here, you can heel toe this foot over to here. And then we're going to let the knee come down over here. So it's like coming this way. And your foot can slide back this way if you need to a comfortable spot. There you go. There you go, you got it. Mm-hmm. So if you can you slide this knee back a little further, like that. And you can try sitting on this bolster like this. So just let your hips come over to that side. Does that feel okay?
Yes.
Okay. So you work your way into a comfortable spot here, or as comfortable as you can get, which I know for some of us, this pose is still a challenge, no matter where you find yourself with it. You can make it a little bit easier if you put a bolster underneath your right butt cheek. Or if it's too much, you can just roll over onto your back, and I'll show you an option there. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get out of the muscles and really sense the bones and just let those bones sink into the floor. All right, so different sensation than what we're often used to. We're often used to feeling our muscles, working our muscles, stretching our muscles, strengthening our muscles. But particularly if you've practiced or had a flow yoga practice, this can be a really nice experience to get to that next deeper level. So once we get a little bit beyond the muscles, we can get a little bit further into the joints, the ligaments and the tendons, the stuff around the joints. And what we actually do is we kind of open that stuff up a little bit. This is a pose where a lot of us, it's addressing a place where a lot of us hold a lot of tension. Right, this is the outer right butt cheek, the right hamstring. Anything in there that I can just focus on, breathe into, and see if I can just allow it to release. Not forcing it out, just trying to open the door. And you just see if you can let that stuff go on its own. This pose in a flow yoga class is called pigeon, but in yin it's often called sleeping swan. And I mention that because our next pose is going to be swan, which is simply you come up onto your arms, you leave your legs about where they are, and then you use your arms to sit up a little bit. You might need to adjust that front foot to get it to a comfortable spot, maybe a little closer to your groin. So when we come up, it becomes a little bit more of a stretch on the front of the back leg. And also, if you relax your abdominal muscles, you might find that you get a little bit more of a becomes a little bit of a bend in your lumbar spine and your lower spine. If you feel like you can go a little bit further here, you can try bending the back knee. Some of you might even be able to grab a hold of that back foot with one or both hands. And you can try that, and then if it's too much, you can let go of it, because I know that can become pretty intense. Right, so we don't want it to be too overwhelming. We just want to find a sweet spot. And then, right, we tend to, it's so easy to look around and see what other people are doing and then start to compare. Right? You might even want to skip this pose totally. That's fine. Just because somebody's grabbing their foot doesn't mean that they're better than you. It just means that they need to do a little bit of movement to find a spot where they can get to that area of resistance that you've already found. Keep that focus on that breathing. And wherever you are, we'll release it so you can release that foot. We're going to work our way out, which maybe means you roll a little bit over to the right side. If you want to work your way into down dog, you can tuck those back toes, lift the back knee, work your way into down dog. Or you can come into child's pose first, then work your way into down dog, whatever feels right. Stretch things out a little bit. Find that comfortable spot here in down dog just for a moment. And then we're going to take on the other side. So that left knee comes behind the left wrist. And then that left foot finds its way to a comfortable spot. We release our back toes. You walk your chest out a little bit. Can I find that spot that's my edge, somewhere between too much and not enough? The edge is going to be different on this side compared to the other side, most likely. Where you put your front foot might vary. Some people love to get it up pretty close to that right armpit. Some people like to have the foot pretty close to the groin. Very personal. All depends on how our joints fit together, the shape of our bones, particularly that femur bone. The socket can vary a lot from one person to the next in terms of the angle of that socket. So it doesn't make you better just because you can go a little bit further here. It just means you have the type of body that allows it. Did you want to try this one on your back?
On the back.
Yeah.
Good deal.
There you go, you got it. Remember, you can always back off a little if it's too much. Keep breathing into that spot. From sleeping swan to swan, we come up onto our arms. See if you can keep the eyes from wandering around too much. See if you can maintain that internal focus. Remember that it's okay to adjust your legs a little bit as you go from that last pose to this pose. So now we're getting a little bit of a back bend. So here you can release your legs, and then if you just want to come up onto the bolster, sit up a little bit. Yeah, try that. Okay, we're just trying to open the back a little bit. So you don't have to keep your legs in that position. So you can just do that.
Oh, just like this.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you want, you can grab a hold of that back leg with one hand or both hands, or you can try that and then release it if that becomes too much. All right, see if you can keep getting into that exploration of what you're feeling. Not on a mental level, just kind of on an intuitive level. Right? If you get out of that ego, which is trying to tell you to get somewhere, and you just listen to your body, and you just keep listening, your body will help you find the exact right spot, that spot where it needs to be. And when you do that, that can be a very, very healing practice. From here, slowly work your way onto all fours or into down dog. And then we're going to come down onto hands and knees. Cross your legs behind you, sit back, and then eventually hug your knees into your chest. From here, we're going to spread our legs wide, so you extend your legs out and wide. Want to put your hands behind you a little bit. And probably for a lot of us, it's a good idea to sit on a bolster here to get our hips up a little bit higher. So what we're going to do is on an inhale, we extend our chest a little bit long and tall. On an exhale, you walk your hands out in front of you. Come into a spread leg forward fold. So for some of us, I like to have my knees a little bit bent in this pose, which makes it a little bit easier to pivot the pelvis forward. You can try that as an option. And then eventually what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to, again, let all the muscles go. So just let everything sink down. Right? It's not about reaching further and trying to push myself further into the pose energetically. It's about just letting everything sink deep. And initially that may feel like you're rolling out of it a little bit, but if you can really let go of those muscles, you find that you maybe even sink in a little bit further. And I know a lot of the a lot of the different yoga traditions out there now, right? There's very specific ways that we move our bodies. So like in this pose, right, we're often told to pull our feet back, which actually does help to stretch the muscles on the backs of the legs, right? But in this class, we don't want it to be about that. So you just let all those muscles go. You let your feet flop to whatever position they go to. You let your head hang down. Unless that becomes too much, then you can adjust your head. And it's really pretty cool, if all the muscles just release, then we find ourselves sinking in a little bit deeper. We find ourselves opening and expanding. This class, this is a hip series, so we're focusing pretty much from the knees to the mid-torso. Pretty focused area there, trying to open this area up, expand things, trying to work out the kinks, trying to work out any tension. And if you get into sensing your bones here, you might even be able to sense the lower spine opening up. It's like we're creating some space, stretching those joints in the lower spine here. Which, if you're not used to it, it can be a little bit scary to just feel that stuff kind of moving a little bit. A lot of us, particularly if we have lower back problems, tend to hold the muscles in our lower back really tight and firm. And it's almost like it splints our spine to keep it from getting injured. But over time, it's like if you hold anything in one position for too long, it kind of just gets stuck. And then as we address this area, trying to pry it open very gently, it can still feel a little bit scary if you're not used to it. So that's okay, as long as you're not feeling any intense or sharp pains. Right? That's okay to just go with those sensations. And again, if you just listen to your body, it'll tell you what to do. From here you can use your hands to slowly walk yourself up. And place your feet flat on the floor with your knees bent, and then I like to do a hammock after this, which is you lift your butt up off of the floor, swing it a little bit from side to side. And then from here we're going to go into half saddle. So the way we do that is we extend the left leg out in front of us. You take your right ankle, you pull it back next to your right butt cheek so that right knee is bent. And then going very slowly, we're just going to come down. And you can stay here if it feels like this is enough. Or if you want, you can come down onto your forearms. And then if that feels okay, you can go all the way to lying on your back. But go slowly there. Just go to that point where it feels like that's enough. And if you're in one of those in-between spots, you can maybe put a bolster or two behind you and just relax on those. And you just try to find that comfortable spot, right? This can be pretty intense on that right knee. So if it feels really uncomfortable there, you can come out of that with that right knee. Or if your knee's poking up a little bit or going out to the side, as long as it feels okay, that's all right too. Yeah, that's fine. As long as it doesn't hurt. Yeah, so if your knee comes up a little bit, mine does in this pose. I'm one of those people that can just relax on my back, no problem here, but my knee does come up a little bit, that's all right. Or if it pops out to the side a little bit, that's okay. So if it's uncomfortable here and you want to sit up a little more, that's fine too. Another thing you can do is you can put a towel underneath your ankle there, so it's a little bit less on the foot. Just whichever way feels most comfortable. Some people like it out to the side. Other people, that bothers the knee too much. Mm-hmm. So one last thing, if you're just lying back and you feel like you're not feeling it too much, for those few people, you can try bending the left knee. Well, actually, we got like half people doing one side, half doing the other. But if you're lying back, the knee that's already bent, you can hug the other knee into your chest, that straight knee. If it feels like you want to get a little further into it. If you're lying on your back, it's a little bit awkward. Just kind of use your arms to work your way back into a seated position. And then you can lean over to the side and gently bring that leg out. So both legs are straight. Maybe shake the legs out a little bit. And then we're going to take on the opposite side. So you bend that left knee for most of us. You tuck that left foot back next to your left butt cheek. You try to get yourself situated in a comfortable position. If it feels all right just sitting up like that, you stay there. If you want to go further, you can walk your hands back a little bit. You can even come down onto your forearms. and you go slow, right? You come out of it even though you're going slow, sometimes you can go a little bit too far and then you realize you have to back off. Or if it feels all right to lay all the way down, you do that. And if it doesn't feel all right to bend that left knee, you can have both legs straight and just lie back on a bolster. So there you lose the stretch on the front of that leg with the bent knee, but you still get a little bit of a back bend if you're lying on the bolster. Still that self-inquiry, turning inward, looking inward, trying to access what I'm feeling. Right, the way that we approach the stuff in here is like we should approach any relationship. This relationship with our bodies. It's so easy to take for granted, so easy to buy into the commercials and the magazines that tell us we should be looking a certain way or feeling a certain way. Right? All that stuff is just trying to tell you, I'm not good enough. And one of the things I love about yoga, particularly yin yoga, is it comes from this point of view of you're perfect already. You're exactly where you need to be. So this relationship that I have with my body, this most primal relationship, probably our most important relationship, the relationship that will be with us the longest. This is teaching us to get into that relationship in a way that's very caring and that's very healing. And I know it can be a shock because I've experienced it myself. When I first got into this stuff, it was really shocking to me to find that I had these feelings like, oh, I hate myself, or man, I stink at this. How can I be so bad at this? Or, how come all the people in this class are so flexible and I'm like the guy over in the corner that just can't do it? What's wrong with me? And then this yoga journey becomes about letting go of all of those attitudes, all of those thoughts. Until you get to that point where you realize, hey, I can skip all these poses, or I can just do a few of them. It doesn't really matter. The primary thing is I'm working on that relationship with myself in a way that's caring, that's compassionate. So wherever you are, we're going to work our way out. We're going to come into a seated position. Knees bent. Maybe we do that hammock where we put our hands behind us, feet flat on the floor. You can lift your butt up, shake things out a little bit. You can let your knees windshield wiper one side to the other. And then from here, what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to take your feet with your knees bent and put them at the edges of your mat. And then what I want you to do is to let both knees flop over to the right side. And then we're going to take our hands and just walk them straight down the mat behind you. And then there you can either come onto your forearms, or maybe some of you can even lie all the way down onto the mat. All right, so we did some forward bending, some back bending. Now we work our way into a gentle twist. So it's nice here if you can get a little bit of length in this, which is a little bit of trying to reach out with your arms to try to get your spine long. But still keeping it within a comfortable range. And then we're just trying to relax and sink into it. If you let those muscles go heavy, this can be a really nice, it's like a little bit of a release and a little bit of wringing things out at the same time. Did I forget that awareness on my breathing? You can always come back to that. And then remembering any of those thoughts that pop into my head. I don't have to believe them. I can just kind of watch them and I can see if I can let them go. So many of those thoughts. They're just one thought leading to the next. Often repetitive. If you're like me, you probably have more than one friend that you talk to them and they're still worrying about the same problems that they were worrying about 10 or even 20 years ago. Just every day, the same thing over and over and over and over again. I think sometimes we can even get addicted to our problems. And that's one of the things we're trying to do in this class. We're trying to break those addictions, particularly that one to that mental story in your head. It's very likely that mental story of who you think you are is inaccurate. Very likely. Now, how many of us have something that happened to us a long time ago, maybe even when we were a child, and it shapes the way we view ourselves? Or maybe you're one of those people that has or has had an eating disorder. And that's really a good example. You look in the mirror, and no matter how skinny you are, you think you're fat. So if you fight that internal battle with your mind, if you try to fight it, it's never going to end. So we're trying to approach this stuff from a different perspective. It's like we're trying to get on the highway to the truth. Everything we've been doing in this class tonight is trying to move you in that direction. So yeah, it can be mostly about the physical stuff. That's fine. I mean, that's how it was when I started yoga. For me. But this class, definitely a challenging class because we're trying to go deeper. Deeper physically and mentally. And I know it's not easy, so you just do the best you can. From here, we're going to slowly work our way back to center, so walk yourself up with your hands. Knees come back to center. Maybe you shake things out a little bit here. You can shake the legs out a little. And then eventually the feet come to the bent knees at the edges of the mat. Hands behind you. You let your knees flop over to the left side. And then that right hand comes over. You walk your hands down the center of your mat. If you can't come all the way to lying down, maybe you can lie down on a bolster. And always feel free to get creative with the props. So we try to feel that deep release here. You know, everybody in the pose looks a little bit different, so I think that hopefully means that you found a spot that's comfortable for you. And then you come back to that, paying attention to what you're feeling. And then you expand that, paying attention to what you're feeling, to what's going on inside your head. And all this stuff, I mean, I think of yoga as a very practical thing, a very practical exercise. So it can sound a little funny to say at the same time, right? Yoga is about enlightenment or liberation. But that is what it's about, ultimately. And enlightenment simply being to shine a light on. Right? So some of these poses, we get into some really deep places. And when you hold these poses for a while, I know it can be challenging. And it's like you get into some of these deep, dark places, you shine a light on them, and then the stuff in there, that tension, that stuff that maybe has been accumulated over a lifetime of worrying and whatever you do in terms of mentally that stresses you out, that stuff then kind of gets into your body and it's held there, and then we we turn things around and we try to release that stuff. And in the same way we can do that stuff with our body, we can do that with our minds. Simply by paying attention, being a little bit kind and caring, being non-judgmental with the thoughts that pop up. And eventually that story in your head, it just kind of dissipates. It loses its ability to affect you in such a powerful way. And then when you get all those repetitive thoughts, and most of us, at least according to Harvard, 90% of our thoughts in any given day are somewhere 85, 90%. Those repetitive thoughts, they just kind of dissipate. And then when those thoughts dissipate, you have lots of room in your mind. You have more space. You see things more clearly. You know, it's a beautiful thing. Slowly work your way out of this side. So you walk yourself back up with your hands. And then slowly find your way to lying on your back. We're going to hug our knees into our chest. We're going to squeeze our face up to our knees when we're lying down. We're going to squeeze everything into a tight little ball. And then just release it and let it go. And we've made it to our final pose. So congratulations on that. Congratulations on all that effort that you've made. And we've come up on an hour, so if you need to leave, you can just leave your mat where it is. But if you can join us for this last pose, and this is where the yoga starts. One of my teachers always used to say, every class, this is the most important pose. Took me a long, long time to get that one. For a long time I thought it was about the activity and trying to get somewhere and trying to get deeper in the poses. But ultimately I just want this to be a very healing experience for you. Your yoga can be totally, totally, totally about finding balance in your life. A balanced and healthy body, a balanced and healthy mind. It's like everything just kind of falls into place on its own if you can keep at your yoga practice. And you just keep working on this stuff in a gentle way, and eventually, without even realizing how it happens sometimes, I think you just find yourself in that spot. So this is our last pose, but it is still a pose, which means I still want you to pay a little bit of attention to what you're feeling. A little bit of attention to those breaths. And a little bit of awareness on any thoughts that pop up. See if you can keep from getting attached to any of that stuff. See if you can just make that little shift from I am what's going on in my mind to I'm the witness of what's going on. And yeah, I know I harp a lot on the mind in this class. You know, it's just because for a lot of us it just gets a little bit out of control and goes a little bit too fast and too far. But our mind is an amazing tool. And what we're doing in here is we're working on our mind as well, right? We're trying to create a healthy, balanced mind so that that can operate most optimally. I mean, if you get to that spot where your mind calms down, it's just like, oh, it feels so good, such a release. Now see if you can really pay attention. And you might even find a little bit of space between one thought and the next. And if you can find that spot, see if you can just allow yourself to flourish there. You find that spot, you're getting very close to what yoga is all about. And we've found our way to the end of tonight's class. So thank you all for the amazing effort. Please feel free to take your time as you transit out of here. No need to rush. And it was a great pleasure for me as always. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I hope to see you all again soon. So thank you everyone, and namaste.